Since last week we took a look at what is not Jeet Kune Do, how about this week we do the same for its cousin, JKD Concepts? Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods of Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast number 299. This is the one about what is not JKD Concepts. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. All right, so from the outset, a couple of things I got to tell you. Obviously, I'm not at the office, right? You can tell from the background. So if you happen to hear a TV or something going on in the kitchen, that's my nephew Daniel. If the door opens up, that'll be my niece Des coming in with coffee for me and what have you. Right? Okay. From the other outset, I got to tell you this: I am not a big believer in Jeet Kune Do concepts, and I know that that may come as a surprise to many of you, since I'm a longtime student of Dan Inosanto. But the reasons I don't believe, so to speak, in Jeet Kune Do concepts is because, one, I don't think it was well enough thought out. Two, I don't think it was ever well enough explained or even well enough presented. Three, I have never thought of it as an alternative to Jeet Kune Do. Four, I don't consider it to have ever been necessary. And five, I don't think it currently exists, except in the minds of those who are violently opposed to it and want to perpetuate the distinction. And you know who you are. So unlike the vastness of answering the question of what Jeet Kune Do is or is not, answering the question of what JKD concepts can be, it's relatively easier. All right. So in terms of the origins of JKD concepts, right? The froms and the whys. So on closing the LA Chinatown branch of the Junfan Kung Fu Institute, Bruce Lee recommended to Inosanto to take a few dedicated students to his backyard and train them there. And all of that was good. And all of that would have continued to be good if the way things had evolved would have been Bruce Lee coming back to Los Angeles periodically and keeping everybody updated. But instead, he died, about 2 years or so into this particular setup, leaving Inosanto to question what should be done to continue the perpetuation of the art which had been entrusted to him. So close to a year, maybe a little bit more after Bruce Lee's passing, Inosanto decided to open up a school where he and his partner could promote their native Filipino art while keeping the JKD instruction on somewhat of an exclusive and even semi-private basis. And all of that would have been good if demand for instruction or information on Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do had not become a big deal. So like I told you guys last week, within 3 or 4 months of Bruce Lee's untimely passing, Mito Uehara started a new magazine called Fighting Stars, and Bruce Lee was on the cover of Volume 1, Issue 1. And so that's how superstardom, to a certain extent, was born. So there wasn't just demand as it grew from other states within the United States, but there also grew to be demand from other countries. So all of that started to become a thing. So fast forward a little bit here, and Sifu Dan realizes that it's not possible to teach JKD as a fighting system en masse. So I imagine he had a thought similar to, man, Bruce Lee was right. JKD is not for the masses, and the best way is to keep the numbers low and the quality high, right? That's my interpretation of Inosanto's thoughts. So what's to do? So for Sifu Dan, the answer, and again, I am extrapolating here, right? The answer was on seminar I can show people how there are more commonalities among martial arts systems than there are differences. And so, using the concepts of Jeet Kune Do, I can highlight them in another martial art, or I can show how they can be applied in a particular instance where they're not found in that art. That way, I can still bring out the aspects of Jeet Kune Do, but I won't be breaking my promise to Bruce Lee to not commercialize the art. Okay, and that's why you could find stuff like this happening on seminar.
These Jeet Kune Do Concepts.
You want to hear it again?
These Jeet Kune Do Concepts.
You want to hear it again?
Jeet Kune Do Concepts.
Right. Okay. So that is kind of the stuff that you could do. Okay. So now, because Bruce Lee, because Dan Inosanto was well known as Bruce Lee's premier disciple, and since on seminar he happened to be showing a fair amount of Kali, a fair amount of Silat, perhaps even Muay Thai, Boxe Française, whatever. Right. Some people, for some strange reason, became confused by this approach, and they succumbed to the simple-minded idea that JKD was nothing but a mix or a combination of techniques from different martial arts. Because after all, here was Bruce Lee's top lieutenant showing this stuff, so this must be what Jeet Kune Do had become. Now, obviously, anybody who had that formulation of thought was dead wrong. And again, along the way, so Inosanto continues to indulge his proclivity for studying different martial arts systems. And also along the way, he does what he can to promote the instructors of these different systems so that anybody who is interested in studying them could benefit from the same expert instruction that he was receiving. So this just compounded the situation even more, and it led to a tendency, and I know it led to that tendency because I am probably still guilty of it, to label the art from which one might be drawing, right? If you were to show a sequence that contained like a blend of techniques or something, because you're trying to show the commonalities, you might name, this comes from this art, this comes from that art, or whatever, right? Then also some of Inosanto's followers, and I know this for a fact because I happen to be one of them, adopted the practice in training in these other arts in depth, because the deeper you go into an art, the better or the more you can understand it. And then the more information you have when you come back out from the depths of studying that art. So what happened to some people, though, is that they forgot to bring what they were learning back to their JKD roots. And so that resulted in an unintended departure from the foundational principles among some of the highly skilled and knowledgeable Jeet Kune Do practitioners, unfortunately so. So in closing somewhat, understand this. The idea was never to apply JKD principles to a different art in order to enhance that art. It was actually more of the opposite. It was to bring whatever you found valuable in another art and put that into your JKD. This is what Bruce Lee himself had done. Even if he didn't train in arts extensively, the way Inosanto and some of his followers did. But Bruce Lee did research different arts and then, to coin a phrase, absorbed what was useful, personally suitable for him. Okay? So that's pretty much what I wanted to expound on. Now let's have some fun. So one of our more inscrutable members, Kosh or Koshe JKD, I actually invited him to send me some questions about his perceptions of Dan Inosanto and the JKD concepts phenomenon. And he was gracious enough to do so. So I will now answer his questions, right? So he says, why does every JKD instructor or student who graduated from the Inosanto Academy come out with two sticks in their hands? Which I think is that's a very funny question, right? Meaning, why do their JKD classes involve teaching or learning with sticks? So I don't know of anybody associated with Inosanto or the Inosanto Academy who teaches a JKD class with sticks in their hands. So, for example, just last weekend at my monthly JKD and Kali workshop in Coral Springs, I taught snappy hitting with the stick in the Kali section. In the JKD section, where we did do snappy hitting, we just stayed empty hands. So I'm not sure what this thing about every JKD instructor graduates, with two sticks in their hands. The other question was, why did Shannon Lee come up with the term Junfan Jeet Kune Do, right? Was it not to differentiate from the concepts branch? Okay. No. Shannon Lee came up with the term Junfan Jeet Kune Do because it was a term which could be copyrighted for the uses and the purposes of the Bruce Lee Educational Foundation. The term Jeet Kune Do had already been in public usage, public domain for such a long time, 2+ decades, that there was no way that term could be trademarked. But a new term such as Junfan Jeet Kune Do, yeah, you could trademark that, copyright it, and whatever. All right. Question, why did Dan Inosanto pull out after the first nucleus meeting that Linda Lee held in the 90s? Why did pretty much most instructors decide to stay and represent the Bruce Lee Foundation and Junfan JKD, but Inosanto pulled out never to return? What's the intention or the underlying cause behind that? So I've said this before. If anybody who was thinking of forming a Jeet Kune Do organization, if they had called me in advance and asked if I thought that Dan Inosanto would be a part of it, I would have told them no. I don't think so. Because in my opinion, deep down, Inosanto believes, as did Bruce Lee, that Jeet Kune Do is not an organization of which one can be a member. But I think he saw the value of having such an organization to guard against misrepresentation of Jeet Kune Do, because he had seen that happen on the seminar circuit. So I think had certain circumstances been different, he would have been happy to be part of the nucleus, even if he never took an extremely active part in it. Okay, last one. Why do some of your guests on the podcast, such as Bob Landers or the Kung Fu Genius, to mention a few, who were going to Inosanto seminars or JKD concept seminars back in the day, why did they say that they weren't seeing any JKD in Dan's way of teaching, but rather they were seeing mostly Kali or stick-based teachings? Well, pretty much answered that already. But see, my friend Bob Landers, my good friend Richard Torres, and others, they expected to see Dan Inosanto teach only Bruce Lee stuff on seminars, partially because that was their hope and wish. So that's how it became their expectation. And so, lucky for them and people like them, after years of, I don't know, inactivity or infrequent teaching or maybe small group private teaching, people like Ted Wong came onto the scene teaching only what they had gotten from Bruce Lee. And so the people who expected that from Dan Inosanto found ostensibly a savior. All right. So these are the people who consider what Bruce Lee gave us to approach a level of sacredness, and a level of sacredness which they believe should not be violated. And so the Ted Wong approach delivered to them, it delivered exactly that to them, that inviolable sacredness. Whereas the Dan Inosanto approach appeared to them to not be as holy, since he freely dealt in harlotry, right, by associating with like unclean reprobates from outside the world of Jeet Kune Do, right? And so to complete this little religious analogy, some of them, the JKD purists, even went so far as to accuse Inosanto of doing what he did for the proverbial 30 pieces of silver. What they conveniently forget, however, is Bruce Lee's own thoughts on JKD, namely that for him, there was no distinct pattern which constituted the JKD method. And also, keep this in mind, Bruce Lee literally invited people who enjoyed JKD to join with him in training and developing it. So what say you? What do you think about this little breakdown on what Jeet Kune Do Concepts is not? Please let me know in the comments below. That's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, comment, rate, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At paypal.me, the Jeet Kune Do Journey Volume 1 is available, the raw but edited version, paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. You can also support let me put that up there so you don't have to listen to me reading it. Okay. You can also support the program at YouTube on the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast channel by subscribing to the channel. And also, last but not least, you can support the program over at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The JKD Notables t-shirt, also available as kitchen implements, or this kitchen implement, the 4 tenets of Jeet Kune Do, also available in garment form. You dig how I do that? Right? Okay. So that is it. I hope all you guys had a really good Thanksgiving, those of you here in the States. Like I told you before, for the next Friday and probably the Friday after that, I might not be able to do episodes of the Jeet Kune Do dialogues, but Wednesdays still look good for issues of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. All right. So happy belated Thanksgiving to all of you. You guys stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Be safe. Talk soon.